the alien beggar at the starport gate. The starport was always loud. Ships landed and took off every minute. People from many planets walked through its gates, traders, soldiers, tourists, and leaders. No one looked down. Everyone was in a hurry. But at the corner near the garbage unit sat a small alien woman. She was covered in dirt. Her clothes were torn and thin. Her green skin looked pale, and her eyes were empty. She held a metal cup with both hands, hoping someone would drop a coin or a leftover snack. Most people didn't even see her. Others turned their faces away. She was starving. She hadn't eaten for 2 days. Her tail was wrapped around her legs to keep warm. Cold wind blew through the port's main gates, but no one offered her a coat. Not even a look. Her name was Zia. She used to be a student. She had dreams once. But that was before the war, before her home was bombed, before she was taken as a prisoner, and later thrown out like trash. Now she was just a beggar. Suddenly, a black hover car stopped in front of the main building. The guard stood straight. Reporters moved closer. A group of bodyguards walked out first, clearing the way. Then he stepped out. The man was tall, human, and powerful. His name was Commander Rylan Voss, a war hero, a respected leader, and one of the most feared negotiators in the galaxy. His uniform was sharp, his metals shiny. Every step he took made people stop and stare. Zia didn't lift her head. She had seen many powerful humans. None had helped her. But this time, something strange happened. Commander Rylan was walking, past when he stopped. Just stopped. His boots were only a few feet away from her cup. Zia slowly looked up, afraid he might shout at her like others had done. But he didn't say anything. He just stood there, looking at her. Their eyes met. She blinked. So did he. In that single second, something passed between them. A strange memory. A flash. A face. Zia's heart began to race. Could it be him? She thought. No, it was impossible. Rylan didn't speak. Instead, he looked at one of his guards and gave a short order. The guard returned minutes later with a warm meal, in a box. Rylan himself walked forward and knelt down. He knelt and placed the box beside Zia. Her hands trembled. I don't have any credits, she whispered. You don't need any, Rylan replied. His voice was deep but soft. She opened the box. The smell of warm bread, vegetables, and sweet sauce hit her nose. Her stomach growled loudly. She hadn't tasted real food in days. She picked up a spoon, but her hand was shaking too much. Rylan gently took her hand and helped guide the spoon to her mouth. One bite, one small bite, and tears rolled down her cheeks. The taste, the warmth. It was too much. She cried quietly while chewing. Everyone around stared. Reporters whispered. Guards looked confused. Why would a great leader kneel before a dirty alien woman? But Rylan didn't care. His eyes never left her face. He looked serious, almost like he was trying to remember something. Zia wiped her tears and looked up again. Why are you helping me? She asked softly. Rylan didn't answer. Instead, he asked, What is your name? Zia, she said. He nodded. You should rest. He turned to his guard. Prepare guest quarters, she comes with me. Gasps filled the air. Even Zia was shocked. Wait, what? She asked. I'm just a beggar. But Rylan didn't stop walking. Not anymore. And, just like that, Zia, an alien beggar nobody noticed, was escorted through the main gates, past cameras and soldiers, into a warm, private vehicle. For the first time in years, she didn't feel cold. She didn't feel alone. But deep inside, she was scared. Who was this human? Why was he being kind to her? Did he really not recognize her? She looked at his face again. So familiar. Could it be? No. That human she saved years ago? He was just a young soldier. He couldn't possibly be the same man, or could he? The meal that changed her fate. Zia sat in a clean room for the first time in years. The walls were white and quiet. A warm light glowed above her and soft air blew through a vent in the ceiling. Her old rags had been replaced with simple but clean clothes. She still felt nervous. She didn't trust this peace. She had learned not to, but the smell of food made her stomach turn with hunger again. A tray sat on the table. Real food, fresh bread, a bowl of thick stew, some fruits, and water. It didn't feel real. She kept looking at the door. Was this a test? A trick? Back on her home planet, the rich used to place food in front of slaves and then take it away, laughing while they cried. She reached for the bread slowly, almost expecting a shock, but nothing happened. She took a bite. Her eyes widened. It was soft, warm, and sweet. Her lips trembled. She hadn't tasted bread like this since before the war. Before she lost everything, Zia placed the bread down and covered her face. She didn't want to cry again. Just then, the door opened. Commander Rylan walked in, calm and quiet. He had changed into a more relaxed uniform. No medals, no armor. Just a simple black shirt and pants. He nodded at her. "Did you eat?" Zia stood quickly and bowed. "Yes, I did. Thank you, sir. I don't know why you're helping me, but you remind me of someone," Rylan said before she could finish. She blinked. "Someone you knew?" He sat across from her. "Yes, long ago, during the war, I was badly injured after an ambush on Alix 9. I lost my squad. I crawled for hours through mud and blood. I thought I was going to die." Zia held her breath. "Someone found me," he continued. "Someone alien. She could have left me. Humans weren't welcome there, but she stayed. She gave me food, water, even protected me when soldiers passed by." He looked up into Zia's eyes. "I never got her name," he said softly. "But I never forgot her face." Zia's chest tightened. Her voice came out, in a whisper. What happened after?" "She disappeared," Rylan said. "I woke up one morning and she was gone. I always thought, maybe they found her. Maybe they hurt her." Zia looked away, her hands clenched in her lap. She remembered that night. She had to leave him. The patrols were getting too close. If they caught her helping a human, they would have executed her family. So she left, without a word. She wanted to tell him now. But something inside stopped her. She wasn't that girl anymore. That girl was brave, hopeful, alive. Now she was just a beggar with scars. Rylan stood. "I'll have the doctor check on you soon. You're very thin. You need rest and care." Zia looked up. "Commander, why do you care? Even if I remind you of her, I'm still nothing." He turned to her, eyes sharp. "Don't ever say that again. No one is nothing, especially not someone who survived what you have." His words were simple, but they shook something inside her. "Zia," whispered, "you're kind." "I'm not kind," Rylan replied. "I just remember what it's like to be helpless." With that, he left the room. Zia sat there, still, staring at the door. Her heart pounded. Could it really be him? Could the broken, bleeding soldier she once saved now be the most powerful human in the galaxy? She touched the side of her face where the scar began, small and hidden under her hair. She had gotten that scar the night she helped him escape. She had always kept it covered, out of shame. Now she wasn't sure. She looked back at the tray of food and picked up the spoon. Slowly she ate more. Every bite felt like life returning to her body. She didn't know what Rylan wanted from her, but for the first time in many years Zia felt safe. And deep inside, something even scarier was growing. Hope. One night in the guest quarters, Zia couldn't sleep. The guest quarters were quiet, warm, and comfortable, too comfortable. After years on cold streets and metal floors, her body didn't trust softness. Her hands were still clenched as if holding an invisible blanket of fear. Even the soft bed under her felt like a trap. She sat near the window instead, staring at the stars outside. Her mind kept asking questions. Why did Commander Rylan help her? Did he really not know she was the same alien girl who saved his life? Or was he just being kind to a stranger? She touched her side, feeling the deep scar that ran down her ribs. A memory flashed. Blaster fire smoke dragging a wounded human into a hole in the ground hiding from patrols. That night changed everything. And now, this night was changing her again. A soft knock came at the door. Zia turned sharply. Her instincts screamed danger, but it was only Rylan. He stood in the doorway holding a small towel and a set of fresh clothes. "You didn't bathe yet," he said calmly. "The water here is clean. It's yours." Zia stood slowly, unsure. "I don't want to dirty your floor." "You're not dirt," Rylan said simply. "You're a guest." That word again. Guest. No one had called her that in years. He placed the towel gently on the table. The shower's voice activated. "Say on and it starts. Temperature adjusts to your skin." She nodded. But when she stepped into the bathroom, she stood frozen for a long time. The mirror. She hadn't seen her full reflection in months. What she saw made her chest hurt, a thin, hollow face. Eyes too large for her skull. Hair matted with dust. Old bruises. Burn marks. Scars on her arms and neck. She didn't look like the girl she once was. She looked like a ghost. She removed her dirty clothes slowly. Her tail moved weakly behind her as if embarrassed. Then she stood under the water waiting. Warm rain touched her body. And she broke. Zia fell to her knees, hands over her face, crying silently as the water washed over her. She wasn't crying because of pain. She was crying because someone gave her warm water. When she stepped out 20 minutes later, wrapped in a towel, Rylan was still outside, waiting. She didn't expect him to be, but he didn't look at her body. He looked straight at her eyes. "You feel better?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes, I think so." "Come," he said. "Sit with me for a while, just talk. No questions if you don't want." Zia followed him into the small lounge area near the kitchen. A dim lamp glowed beside them. He poured her a warm drink, some kind of herbal tea. The smell made her relax. They sat in silence for a few minutes. Then she spoke. "I used to sing," she said quietly, "before the war. My people loved music. I was learning to play the starshell flute." Rylan smiled slightly. "I've heard it. Very rare sound." She nodded. "I lost mine in the war. And my family. I was taken by the soldiers. Her voice faded. Rylan didn't press her. He didn't ask what happened. He just listened. "I escaped after a year," she said. "Since then, I've been hiding, sleeping in corners, stealing food. No one cared." "I care," Rylan said. Zia looked up. "Why? You don't know me." "Maybe I do," he said gently. "Or maybe I just should have helped sooner." She stared into his eyes. They were warm, but behind them, something else. Pain. He had lost things too. Suddenly, Zia felt safe again, but also scared. Scared of feeling too much. "You don't have to stay forever," Rylan said. "Just until you heal." She took a sip of tea. Her hand still shook. "Why do you say that?" she asked. "Because I know what it's like to be broken and think you'll never be whole again," he answered. "And I know it's not true." The room was silent. Then softly, Zia said, "You remind me of someone too." Secrets of the battlefield. The morning sun touched the edge of the large window in Zia's guest room. She didn't sleep much, but she didn't cry either. That was progress. She sat on the floor with her legs folded, slowly brushing out her long hair with her fingers. The towel Rylan had given her was still warm on her shoulders. She wasn't used to quiet. Quiet usually meant danger. Quiet was when shadows moved. But here, in this strange human leader's home, quiet meant peace. For the first time in years, she didn't wake up afraid. But one question kept circling her thoughts. Was he the man she had saved? She still remembered that night, years ago during the final months of the war. The battlefield on Helix 9 had been chaos. Fires burned across the forest. Soldiers were lost, bleeding, screaming. She was just a student then, hiding in the ruins of her city. But she had seen a wounded human soldier dragging himself across the field, leaving a trail of blood. Everyone said to stay away from humans. They were killers, enemies. But he looked so broken, and so young. She had helped him, hidden him under broken machines, brought him food, washed his wounds, protected him. And then, she left. Now, Commander Rylan Voss, hero of the Human Alliance, was treating her with the same care she once gave a stranger. Could fate really bring them together? Again? Later that day, Rylan sat in his office reading through political updates on a screen. Reports were piling up. His team wanted his signature on a dozen trade deals, alliances, and refugee agreements. But his mind wasn't on paper. It was on her. Zia. The moment he looked into her eyes at the starport. Something had stirred inside him. He wasn't sure until now, but her voice, her silence, her kindness. It was her. He opened a private file on his system, a medical report from long ago. It had only one photo, a blurry picture taken by his body camera the night she helped him escape. It showed part of her face and the faint scar running from her cheekbone to her neck, the same scar she had now. His heart pounded. It really was her. That evening, he invited her to the small garden behind his building. Artificial lights, mimicked moonlight. Plants from Earth and alien worlds grew beside each other. The air smelled like mint and fruit. Zia sat on a bench holding a small flower. "I never thought I'd sit in a place like this again," she said softly. Rylan sat beside her, hands on his knees. "I need to ask you something." "But only if you're ready." She looked at him. "I was saved once," he said. "On Helix 9. By a brave alien girl. She didn't speak much, but she risked her life to feed and protect me. I never got her name." Zia froze. "I think you were that girl," Rylan said. Silence. Her fingers gripped the flower tightly. Then she looked at him, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was there. You had a broken leg and blood on your arm. You kept asking for water." Rylan's eyes softened. "It was you." Zia took a deep breath. "I had to leave you. If the patrols found out, they would have killed my family. I never knew if you lived." "I lived," Rylan said. "Because of you." She looked down. "You became a great leader. I became nothing." "No," Rylan said, voice firm. "You became someone who still had kindness after all the pain. That's more than most leaders can say." Zia blinked quickly, trying to hold back tears. "Why did you help me?" Rylan smiled gently. "Because once when I was dying, someone helped me, and I never forgot her." They sat in silence again, but this time, it was peaceful. Something had changed. The past was no longer a wound. It was now a bond. Whispers across the city. It started with a single photo. A journalist hiding behind a tree near the commander's garden snapped a picture. Rylan Voss sitting beside a poor alien woman, holding a flower in her hands, both of them smiling faintly, under the moonlight glow. The photo went viral within hours. Human commander seen with unknown alien female. Beggar or bride, Galactic leader breaks all protocols. Is this the future First Lady of Earth? Whispers turned into waves. In every political office, military camp, and public square, people were talking. Some were curious, some were angry, and some were afraid. Why would a man like Rylan Voss be sitting with a beggar? They asked. Is he losing his mind? Is this alien woman using him? They didn't know her name. They didn't know her story. But they judged her anyway. Inside the headquarters, Zia stood near the window, clutching the sides of her simple dress. She had borrowed it from one of the female staff. She didn't feel like herself anymore. She didn't feel like the beggar from the starport. But she didn't feel like she belonged here either. She watched the news feed glowing on the wall screen. Her own blurry face was being shown in every corner of the galaxy, and she felt exposed. Rylan entered the room holding 2 cups of tea. You're awake early. She turned, nervous. They're talking about me. About you. I know, he said calmly, offering her the tea. Let them talk. But they think I'm tricking you, she whispered. That I'm using you for power. I don't want people to hate you because of me. Rylan took a deep breath and looked out the window beside her. Zia, I've walked through blood, war, and fire. Do you think I care about people who don't even know the truth? Her eyes met his. But they could destroy your image, your future. He looked directly into her eyes. What future do I want if it doesn't include the person who once saved my life? Zia's lips parted in surprise. No one had ever said anything like that to her. He continued, voice calm and low. You're not my burden, Zia. You're the reason I'm still here. You reminded me who I was, who I wanted to be. Tears gathered in her eyes. But I'm just... Stop, he said, soft but firm. You're not just anything. Later that day, during a conference meeting with governors and diplomats, Rylan walked in late. Every eye turned toward him. One alien senator stood up. Commander Voss, she said with a sharp tone, your personal actions are causing political unrest. We believe you are distracted. Rylan smiled faintly. If by distracted you mean helping someone who once saved my life, then yes, I'm distracted. Murmurs filled the room. Another ambassador growled, This alien woman is poor, unknown. She's from a broken colony. You'll ruin our reputation if... Rylan cut him off. Enough. His voice echoed across the room. You all speak of honor, yet none of you would kneel to feed a starving soul. You speak of peace, but only with those who wear gold and fine clothes. The woman you insult is braver than many of you. Silence. Her name, he added, is Zia, and she's not leaving. Outside the chamber, reporters swarmed the building waiting for a glimpse of the alien woman. Zia stayed inside, watching quietly from behind the curtains. She didn't want fame. She didn't want power. She only wanted to disappear again. But now, it was too late. She turned when Rylan entered the room. You defended me, she said quietly. I'll do it again, he replied. Zia whispered, Then let me defend you. He tilted his head. How? She stood tall. For the first time, she wasn't shaking. Tell them everything about the battlefield, about the girl who saved you. Let the galaxy know the truth. Let them know. We didn't meet yesterday. Rylan looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. And the decision was made. The proposal no one expected. The grand chamber on Earth's capital moon was packed. Lights flashed, cameras hovered. Representatives from over 100 worlds had come for the annual Unity Summit, a celebration of peace, progress, and alliances between humans and aliens. But this time, the crowd wasn't just here for politics. They were here for Commander Rylan Voss and the mysterious alien woman beside him. Zia walked slowly behind him, her steps silent, her head held high, but her heart pounded like a drum. Her soft blue dress floated gently around her ankles. No jewelry, no makeup, just her presence. Every eye watched her, some in shock, some in judgment, a few with curiosity. Rylan stood at the center of the stage. Zia stopped a few feet behind, unsure if she should come closer. She didn't belong here, did she? But Rylan reached back, took her hand, and gently pulled her forward, to stand beside him. Gasps filled the room. No human leader had ever shared the stage with a non-human without title, rank, or power. Yet here she stood. Rylan raised his hand. Silence fell. He spoke calmly. Many of you already know who I am, and many of you have questions about her. He glanced at Zia. This woman's name is Zia. I met her long ago, in a moment of weakness, on a battlefield where I was certain I would die. She could have left me. I was the enemy to her people, but instead she risked her life to help me. He paused. She saved me, not just my life, but my soul. And when I saw her again, I realized the galaxy owed her something. And so did I. The room was dead silent. Even the reporters had forgotten to blink. Zia lowered her eyes. Her fingers tightened around each other. She never asked for this spotlight. But she stood there anyway, strong. Rylan turned to her slowly, and then, before the galaxy, he bent one knee. The cameras clicked. Voices gasped. One alien diplomat nearly fell out of his seat. Rylan pulled a small silver band from his coat. Zia, he said, voice steady. I don't care about your past. I care about your heart. You gave me hope when I had none. If you'll let me, I want to spend the rest of my life returning that hope to you. Zia's lips parted. Her hands flew to her mouth. She shook her head, not in refusal, but in disbelief. Tears ran down her cheeks. She whispered, But I'm nothing. Rylan rose slowly and took her hand. No, you are everything. Zia didn't answer right away. She turned to the crowd, tears still glistening on her cheeks, and then she spoke, her voice soft but strong. I was thrown out by my world. I slept in trash, ate from scraps, and was forgotten. But this man saw me when no one else did. He didn't see a beggar, he saw me. She turned back to him. I accept. The room exploded into light and noise, half in shock, half in awe. Some clapped, some whispered, and some watched silently, realizing they were witnessing something historic. That night, Zia sat quietly on the rooftop balcony, watching the stars. The ring on her finger felt unreal. She still wore it like it might disappear at any second. Rylan stepped beside her. You were brave today, he said softly. She smiled, still dazed. I think I'm more scared now than I ever was in the war. He chuckled. So am I. They stood there in silence for a moment. Then Zia looked up at him. You really want a future with me? I want you, he said. Not your title, not your past, just you. She rested her head against his shoulder. The wind was quiet. The stars were watching, and for the first time since the galaxy went to war, peace began with a proposal no one expected. From beggar to bride of a human hero. The wedding wasn't grand. It wasn't held in a palace or across the stars. There were no floating castles, no royal fireworks, no golden invitations. It was simple, just a quiet garden under a glass dome, with the Earth's blue moon above them, and the galaxy watching through a live broadcast. Commander Rylan Voss stood tall, wearing a dark ceremonial robe without medals or rank. He had chosen to come as a man, not as a leader. Beside him stood Zia, no longer a beggar, but not a queen either. She wore a soft white dress. Her scars weren't hidden. Her tail curled gently behind her, a symbol of her species and her strength. Her long hair was brushed but left wild, free, just like her heart now. Across the galaxy, screens lit up in homes, stations, ships, and embassies. Some watched out of curiosity. Some watched with tears. Some still watched with anger. But all watched. The priest spoke ancient vows. Rylan repeated his lines with strength. Zia's voice trembled but never broke. When she said "I do," even the stars seemed to hold their breath. He slipped the ring onto her hand. Again, and this time, it wasn't a promise. It was truth. After the ceremony, Rylan didn't give a long speech, but Zia did. She stood before the cameras, before leaders and citizens from every corner of the known galaxy, and spoke clearly. There was a time I thought I would die nameless, that no one would remember me, not even the man I once saved. I lived in silence. I begged for food, and every time I looked into a human's eyes, I thought, they'll walk past me too. She took a slow breath. But one man did not. One man remembered me not as a beggar, but as someone who once mattered. And today he made me believe that I still do. She looked at Rylan. He saw value where others saw trash. He gave love where others gave pity. And for that, I am no longer a beggar. She smiled, real and full. I am Zia Voss, and I stand proudly beside the man I once saved, who now saves me every single day. The garden went quiet. Then applause erupted, not from every corner, not from every heart. But it was enough. Back, in their quarters that night, Zia removed her shoes and curled up on the soft couch. She looked around the room, once so large and cold and now warm with memories. Rylan walked in with 2 mugs of warm drink and sat beside her. You handled the galaxy better than I did, he joked. Zia smiled. The galaxy is easier than hunger. He looked at her seriously. Are you happy, Zia? She thought for a moment. I think I'm healing, and maybe for now, that's better than happy. Rylan reached over and held her hand. I don't need you to be perfect, he said. I just need you to be you. She leaned her head on his shoulder. And I'll never be alone again, she whispered. Never, he said softly. Not as long as I breathe. In the days that followed, the headlines changed. Alien Beggar, now Lady Voss, Galactic leader, marries former refugee. She saved him in war. Now he stands beside her in peace. From shadows to stardom, the story of Zia inspires millions, and across planets more humans and aliens began to look at each other differently. One act of kindness had sparked something bigger. In the end, Zia was never meant to be forgotten. She wasn't just a beggar. She wasn't just a wife. She was a symbol of survival, of hope, of love between stars and scars. And it all began at a starport gate, with one human who didn't walk past.